Hello, Accelerators. Today on 0 to 100, I'd like to welcome Jason Gills. He is a 20-year finance expert. He's worked with business owners just like you, helping them build very robust portfolios. And as a FINRA licensed advisor, he has over 150 agents that are working at his firm. We're going to cover some really key topics that will help accelerate your business, such as buy-sell agreements, key man policies and how they can save your butt at the end of the day, using life insurance as a tool to go out and get debt, as well as how to leverage your personal investment portfolio to get more capital. Ladies and gentlemen, let's accelerate together. Jason, we're very excited to have you on today.
Well, thank you, Jared. Very glad to be on here with you. It's very exciting and honor to be here, and just looking forward to bringing some value to your listeners today.
Well, I know that our 0 to 100 listeners are going to get a ton of value out of this because you are going to give some very important insights on structuring business, how those structures impact profitability, and just overall operations over the long term of building something that is successful. And one of the things that I want to dive into first is talking about partnerships. And what I'd love for you to share with our listeners, with the audience today, is what are some of the key factors you should be looking at when forming a partnership, whether it's early on in a business or you're at a point in your business where it's growing and you and your partner sit down and go, hey, we have a great relationship, things are working, but we really need to solidify what our partnership is in writing.
Sure. Great question. Well, first of all, it's obviously, Jared, a lot easier if this is done on the front end, right? That can save you some headaches down the road. And I believe very much in the concept of alignment over assignment, right? So that's one of the big things is being in partnership with the right people, picking the right people that everything from, core values align and, character things, visions, how you want to do things. So if a lot of that is discussed and in place, we can figure out the what's and how's and stuff, but that's really the first place I would start.
Got you. I love that. So talk to me about a topic you and I had addressed in the past, and that is buy-sell agreements, which are really, really important for partners to hash out in the beginning of their partnership process.
Oh yeah, for sure. So, basically buy-sell agreement, really is just a legal contract, talking about how the business can be set up, valued, and more in particular, if you have multiple partners, if God forbid, one were to pass away, become, disabled or something like that, or just decided, what, they're out, right? So on the front end, having that done and legally in place, a contract in place to where we know, hey, if I want to exit, or more importantly, God forbid something happens to me, what is that going to look like? What are we agreeing up front? And then, let's agree on some sort of mechanism for evaluation that's fair to all parties involved.
So if you look at the valuing of the business, which I think is really key, especially and really wherever you are in terms of in a partnership and wherever you are in terms of operating a business, what are some of the techniques that you would employ to go out and value a business if you're working with a business owner?
Yeah, well, I would definitely, different industries are going to be different, as you know, Jared. But I definitely would advise people seek legal counsel. I'm obviously not a business attorney, but I think people should seek counsel and they should do their due diligence in their industry where they know. Obviously, a lot of times it's a multiple of revenue or net profits or EBITDA or whatever it is. But I think the biggest thing is coming up with a clear understanding and agreement of how we're going to value this business. Again, that way, if something happens, one's looking to exit, one passes away, there's a clear defined amount, can save you a lot of headaches and lawsuits down the road. And again, God forbid a partner pass away. their heirs, their spouse or children start getting involved, and you definitely don't want there to be a huge discrepancy over what the business is worth at that time.
So, can you share a story with the audience where you've seen things go catastrophically wrong for partners who didn't have the right processes in place?
Whew. Um, let me think here. Yeah, I've seen multiple ways. One is you have a partner in an agreement that maybe they're not pulling their weight on a financial side, right? Maybe there's
Mm,
financial obligations, and one's not able to live up to that. Okay,
mm,
so in that situation, Jared, how does that change things? This person's been footing, 85% of the bill, or coming up with the capital, which initially it was supposed to be 50-50, but challenges arose down the road. And then when there's profits of the business, you know, okay, how is that going to be dispersed? Right. Because
mm.
initially it was supposed to be 50-50. One starts putting a lot more in. And I've seen that run into headaches. Another big example I saw is initially one particular that I think about in the construction world specifically. One partner was more the admin side. The other one was go out. Well, the company exploded and blew up, right? They were, multi-million dollar contracts and stuff coming in. And eventually it became to where that one partner was doing, something that they could have hired, an accountant or somebody like that to do. And so when you start dealing in millions of dollars and we're 50-50 partners, but one person is responsible for 90% of the business, right? So again, if you could have some foresight on the front end to think about those kind of things, that can save you a lot of headache down the road.
I'm going to have to agree with you. And it was something I've learned in business that is very important, especially when you are forming a partnership, is that no partnership is ever created equal. So, what does that mean? That means you really need to be open and honest with the individual that you're getting in bed to, with what you think and have the capability to bring to the table in the current market and over the long term of that relationship and partnership. And also, that gives you the ability to negotiate on things like ownership interest or profit distributions based on what someone's bringing to the table. And as you know, the individual who's typically bringing the most money, they have more of the pie because you need the money to operate the business. Things can also change over a period of time, and you can be creative where the split could be 70-30 in favor of the individual who brings the investment capital. But over the long term, the other individual who has the 30%, who's really the boots on the ground, as they generate more wealth and more money, they can then replace that individual's capital and gain more interest in the company. So you can work through things where it doesn't have to be just black and white and set
Sure.
in stone for the life of the contract. Be creative with your partner, but be honest going in, because that's where you get the rifts and the relationships, is when at the end of the day somebody feels like they're not paid enough or the other person's being paid too much, etc. And that can cause a business to crumble. So I totally agree with you. It's something you've got to deal with on the front end.
Absolutely. No, I love that. Just being fluid with it and coming back periodically, renegotiating, revisiting. And Jared, if it's okay, one more thing worth noting, I've seen a couple times happen. One situation was two partners, one passed, and it was so that partner that passed had 5 kids, right?
Mm,
Okay. So now those 5 kids collectively have, 50% undivided interest, right? Okay. And,
mm,
and so they had a lot different ideas, of how things should be done. A couple of them, oh, I want to sell. And so that ran into a lot of problems for years. Okay.
mm,
And also one more situation, very similarly, somebody passing and, so a spouse was obviously, half owner at that time. The problem
mhm.
was, Jared, the spouse had never worked in the business. Does that make sense? Okay. So they had never worked in the business, didn't really understand it, didn't bring any value, but thinking, hey, I'm entitled to 50% of all the profits here,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not bringing in any value in weight there. So again, structure in the business, as you alluded to, a buy sell agreement earlier, having that in place up front, I think is critical.
So, as you peel back the layers of the onion, it's interesting to listen to the stories compound and all of the things that could happen. And call it Murphy's Law, call it whatever you want to call it.
Right.
Things do happen. So, you have to prepare yourself for it. Can you give a little bit of insight and on how to put insurances in place around a business and a partnership to protect the partners?
Yes, absolutely. And, just to make it really, really simple. Okay. Let's just say hypothetically, me and you own a business together, right? We're 50-50 partners. And let's say we value the business $1 million. Okay.
Mm,
$1 million for keep it really simple. And so buy sell agreement may say, hey, okay, it's worth 500,000 each. So
mm,
if I pass away, okay, you can acquire my half for 500,000. So what I've seen businesses do, okay, is they will take out a life insurance policy, particularly a term life insurance policy. The business, is probably going to own those policies, pay for them, and put it as a business expense. And then what happens is, let's say I pass away. Well, to avoid that situation we were talking about earlier, where now you're in business, with my spouse and kids, is we have agreed on the front end that if I pass away, that life insurance is going to go to, in this situation, my spouse, and you would obtain my portion of the company. So now you have 100% ownership. The life insurance portion bought out my interest from my spouse in that situation.
So you can use, and let me just be super clear. You can integrate into your structure of the business insurances like term life insurance. So if one of the partners passes away, whatever the value of that policy is can pay to buy out the other partner's interest and go directly towards their family.
Yeah, 100%.
Now, if it's a life insurance policy, that life insurance policy is not taxed. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Correct. Yeah, life insurance, if it's, most situations, not when a bishop beneficiary is listed, and they get that money, it is not okay. That's why
Yeah.
it's always important to list a beneficiary. For example, if you just leave it to the estate
Mhm.
has to go through probate, and then depending on,
Right.
obviously, total assets. Again, I'm not a tax attorney or accountant or anything. I'm more of a financial guy, but also in that situation, I would advise them seek, legal counsel or their CPA in the business, because the beneficiary, it's not taxable to. Now, if that partner, or the business got the money, right? And let's say that was tax free to them, but then when they turned around and paid that family, paid that spouse, if you will, then that could possibly be taxable from the sale of the
Mhm.
business. And I would think most likely would be in that
Mhm.
situation. That gets a little bit more convoluted if that
Mhm.
spouse wasn't listed as the beneficiary on the front end.
So if you set up that term life insurance policy, the spouse is listed as the beneficiary. It goes to the spouse upon the passing. That 50% interest of the partnership goes to the other partner. So they now own 100%. The spouse who received that $1 million in term life insurance policy is in a way better position. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, than if they were to sell the business or the other partner had to buy them out, because then they're going to have to pay taxes on that as income, correct?
Yes, sir. Yeah, in that situation, and
Wow.
and also what a lot of people is, again, partner A, partner B, they value the business at their ownership's $1 million each. Let's say, well, the business, my ownership or partner A's ownership may be worth a million, but that doesn't mean me or the widow I leave behind has $1 million. Or sorry, wouldn't it mean that my partner has $1 million cash to
Hmm.
buy the widow out, if that makes
Right.
sense?
Right.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So
That makes sense.
yeah, that's important to understand is life insurance, especially term. You can buy a term policy for, pennies on the dollar compared to
Right.
what it pays out, so it's
Right.
a lot easier for you to come up with a small monthly premium that the business is paying for versus,
Mm,
you trying to have to come up with $1 million in that scenario to
mm.
buy that spouse out.
You know what's interesting now that we're down this deep dark hole of despair in terms of insurance, the importance of insurance in business planning. So there's other things that you also have to look at when you're planning for business beyond just someone potentially passing away, a partner, for instance.
Sure.
There's disability insurance, there's key man insurance. Can you talk about those two aspects of structuring that into your business on how to do it and how it would benefit you if something were to happen?
Yeah, that's a really good one. It's very very good transition. I think about key person insurance, key man, key person, right? Could be key woman. And,
Mhm.
typically, you think about a key person, it could be an owner, it could be an executive, it could be a very, valuable salesperson, somebody who is, an integral part of the business, right? They bring a lot of value to the business. Okay. And so if you think about that key person, God forbid, again, something happened in their absence, what would the monetary impacts of that be to that business? Right.
Mm,
And so that's where a key person life insurance policy could really come into play.
mm, mm. And what are your thoughts on disability insurance? So someone becomes incapacitated and they can't actually perform the business for a period of time or a long period of time. What are your thoughts on also implementing disability insurance?
Yeah, I'm not an expert on that field. I'm not as versed in that, just to be 100% 100% transparent. But
Mhm.
I definitely absolutely see the value. I like the ideal of it because again, a lot of people is maybe that you don't pass away, but you become disabled. So, similar concept, with having a key person life insurance policy, having some disability on those key people as well, I could see being a very, very valuable tool because again, there is the possibility that maybe that key person doesn't pass away in the event a
Right.
life insurance policy be paid out, but if they become disabled, having something in place to help replace the revenue or the value they bring. And we could expound on that if you'd like.
So I'll just give an example. Back when I brokered for many years, I actually had a large disability insurance policy
Okay.
because if I couldn't walk around, if I couldn't do my job. So that would be a total loss of income for me,
Sure.
or nearly a total loss of income for me. Let's take if somebody is a contractor or a subcontractor and they fall off of a ladder, their business is
Mm.
completely impacted. They can't run and operate the business. They're not able to oversee things because they're bedridden or they now have a back injury and they can't do the same level of work. That disability insurance is going to cover if your lifestyle, which is really one of the biggest things. People are more likely to get injured on the job than to there to be a death on the job. And we're not trying to be
Sure.
dark here. We're just having a real conversation about if you're a business owner,
Right.
the things that you should be able to do. If you're a chef and you're making food every day and all of a sudden you get in a motorcycle accident and you literally can't use your hands,
Right.
it's like a surgeon, that's your art form.
Right.
You can't do your business. You can't sustain anymore. You won't have a livelihood. So the disability insurance is another thing that is really, really important. And insurance, and it's funny because the deeper I've gotten into business and actually operating my business at a higher level, because it's a higher level business, I've realized that these key tools really do protect you. So they're worth the money, even though sometimes it's stroking the check as like, ugh, I don't want to do this.
Right.
It, if anything ever happens, and that's one of the key things. So you always need to budget for it. But once you have that insurance in place, what are some of the tools that you can use, or how can you best use that insurance to benefit you in other ways? Like, how do you use it as a tool to, for instance, go get credit?
Yeah, absolutely. That is a great point to use that. And I will, but Jared, if you don't mind, but before we move on, I think it's worth noting when you're looking at a key man policy, maybe you have
Mm.
a salesperson or something that's responsible for 50% of the business's revenue, or maybe you have somebody that has some super duper special talent, maybe or body of knowledge or skills that without that knowledge, without those skills, without that salesperson and their, network and them generating that, again, that could be devastating to the company. So whether it's, the life insurance or the disability, but I see people a lot of times, again, buy a term life policy on those key people. And what that allows you to do, something happens to that key person, it can buy the business time, right? So they don't go under. So they're not, whether they need to hire somebody else, train that, it buys you time to find the right people, train the right people, develop the right skill sets, whether it's a salesperson, getting them in, creating some new accounts, and it could absolutely save your business. And again, term life insurance is an extremely low cost, efficient way to buy life insurance and protect the key people in your business. And again, could absolutely save the business from ruin, if something were tragically to happen. Now, you asked a question, about the using life insurance. Okay. And so what I have seen, especially small businesses, right, that they're trying to get funding, and maybe they don't have capital as collateral, and especially if they're self-employed or a smaller business. Like I said, particularly I have a client who does real estate, multifamily, flips, different stuff. Well, he was trying to get a decent loan from his bank, from his credit union, local credit union, and they allowed him. It's called a collateral assignment. Okay, and I'll
Mm.
talk about the difference of if you don't mind in a minute, the difference in collateral assignment versus naming the lender as the beneficiary and why that's significant. But what a collateral assignment allows you to do is go to that lender and say, "Look, I have life insurance. God forbid something happens to me, right? The balance of this loan is going to be paid off, right?" And I have seen lenders that will not loan without having that life insurance in place. If they don't have enough other liquid assets to put up as collateral, they can use the proceeds of life insurance in that situation.
So that's actually a really good point, because if you can structure using that life insurance policy as collateral, and you don't have to necessarily have cash on hand, the cash on hand that you would typically have, you can invest in a really high quality policy that you can use to collateralize your lending in the future. So then it becomes a win win.
Right.
You've got this life insurance policy in place that when it's paid out, it's tax free. You've got now an asset that you can use to borrow against or collateralize getting that loan and building your business. I've never actually thought of it that way. And that's a really creative way of using life insurance as a tool.
Absolutely. And just to differentiate, why I would recommend, the collateral assignment
Mhm.
is because basically what that is doing is, let's say you borrow 250 from the lender and you have a $500,000 policy, you're taking out a $250,000 loan. Okay. Well, you
Right.
don't want to list them as, even a 25% beneficiary, because let's say you get the bulk of that loan paid off. Well, they're still listed as the beneficiary, but
Uh,
the collateral assignment basically is just saying that, hey, they are going to get whatever the outstanding balance of the loan is when a death occurred, that they would get that. And then the
Mm,
rest would go to the other beneficiary, that typically the spouse, the children, whoever they have listed.
got you. Got you. So there's something really important for entrepreneurs and business owners to understand. Because of the role that you play in your business, you are not replaceable. Now, you get to the level of a Jeff Bezos. Yes, you could potentially be replaceable because there's other people that you can hire who are experts in their domain. But as small and mid-sized business owner operators, you are not replaceable. So you do need to have the proper insurances in place to secure your business, whether that's key person, that is disability, that is term life insurance. They can assure that your business can continue to run and operate smoothly if something were to happen to you and you're incapacitated or you have a disability, or if you were to pass, for that business to at least be able to pay out properly so a partner or a family member can continue to operate the business. Those are truly key when you are a small to mid-sized business, having insurances in place.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Awesome. Awesome. I would like to shift to maybe a more positive note
Okay.
since we dealt with a lot of risk mitigation, and that's what insurance is all about,
Yes, sir.
and talk a little bit about our business owners because a lot of our audience are existing business owners. They might have real estate assets, they might have a 401k or a self directed IRA. How do you advise that these business owners use their investment accounts as tools to get access to capital?
Yes, great question. And, and this is just through over years, Jared, personal, research and looking at also, acquiring capital myself, whether it's, buying a house or whatever that may be. And
Mhm.
for years I didn't know. And that's what's crazy about this stuff. There's so many things out there, so many tools available. There's so much, knowledge or strategies that we could all really, really benefit from, but we just don't know what we don't know, right? That's why I love what you're
Right.
doing with this podcast right here is just, bringing these nuggets and pearls of wisdom that really can be life changing. So through the, exploring different ways to, get funding myself, I realized that, I used to think like, oh, you take a loan, or you use all your capital. And, especially, let's face it, as a business owner, you may be generating a lot of revenue. There's a lot of write-offs and stuff. Again, I'm not, again, not giving tax advice, not a tax attorney or anything, but what your personal return says, right, is your income. Then you go to get a loan and it's like, oh, there's not room to add more debt on there, right? I don't know.
Yeah, technically, I don't qualify for much. Let's put it that way.
Right,
I'll just leave. I'll leave it right there.
exactly. If you have a good tax strategist and a tax attorney and stuff, yeah, you may not qualify for a whole lot of lending. But what I learned is you don't have to use your capital, and there's different type of investment accounts, different investment companies and stuff that will allow you to take a loan and basically and let's just take $1 million for easy example. You have $1 million invested, right? And you say, well, I don't want
Mhm.
to take my money out. It's doing good, it's averaging good returns and stuff, how it's invested. But I need this loan. Okay, I really want this loan. So some financial institutions, again, people can do their research, seek out their financial advisor, just Google it. You could probably find this. But what a lot of them allow you to do, Jared, in short, is you got $1 million. They will allow you to borrow, get a loan for a certain percentage of however much you have invested with them, depending on the type of
Mhm.
account and different stuff. I've seen 60, 70-ish%. So let's say you had a million and they allowed 70%. Well, you could borrow up to 700,000 at a very reasonable rate. Obviously it varies depending on what the going rates are and stuff. And I've seen ones, that'll do up to like a 30-year amortization. So in that case, I was talking about your million is still invested in whatever you have it invested. So it's still growing, compounding, and you have the loan over here to use. And as long as you're paying that loan back, your money's still invested. Plus you have the loan dollars doing whatever you need them to do.
Wow. That is actually a very, very good tip for the audience. So let's talk about. I want to kind of transition over to real estate a little bit. First of all, do you know anything about the Augusta rule?
Yes. Yeah.
Walk the audience through, because this is something I've learned over the last few years. And I know I didn't preface that we were or prep you that we were going to have this discussion, but it's fascinating to me. You go to the Hamptons, you go to one of these really exclusive areas and you see these ridiculous houses. There's so many people who are using their homes as tax write-offs. And you don't necessarily have to have $100 million mansion to do that. Walk us through how a business owner could engage in some other tax efficiencies. And I know you're not a tax
Yeah.
expert, so consider your tax expert, but walk us through some of the other things like the Augusta rule that could benefit a business owner.
Okay, and so I'm gonna tell you what I know on this, and this is we're just sharing knowledge. Again, that's why I love this. I'm sharing knowledge, sharing what I know, and just making people aware, putting things on their radar. I think is really really fantastic, Jared. To where people maybe are encouraged, just like this conversation right here may spark somebody. I was talking to a good friend of mine. And by the way, that's why they say your network determines your net worth, right? Show me your friends, I'll show you your future. I was with a
Yep.
buddy who's a business owner. He asked that exact question you just did. He said, dude, you ever heard of the Augusta rule? I'm like, no, what is that? And so I started looking into it, and from what I gathered, like Augusta golf tournament, right? These people, they have these, like you say, mansions and stuff on the golf course. You can uh rent your house out for so
Mhm.
many days each year, and the income that you receive from renting that out, you don't have to pay taxes on that. Okay.
Mm.
And so what I realize is that some business owners will have the business rent their house out, right? For parties, for business functions, for hosting things, doing events, dinners. I've seen people do it for book releases and all kind of things like that, right? And
Mhm.
and so it's a business expense, a write off for the business, right? Because just like you're renting office space or hotel space to do an event, or an Airbnb for an incentive trip, but you're renting it from yourself. And as long as from what I understand, it's not more than what the going rate for something like your house would rent for, and
Mhm.
it is up to those so many days. Don't quote me on this. I believe, Jared, it's 14 days a year that you can rent your house out, that you don't have to pay income tax. So again, just to recap, it's a expense for the business,
Yep.
tax deduction.
Mhm.
But if it's your house, you don't have to show that as income. Again, as long as it's a fair price within those days that's allotted to be able to do that. So yeah, Augusta rule, really, really cool concept. I encourage business owners to do their own research, talk to their tax advisors, attorneys, CPAs. That
Mhm.
could be a really good one right there.
And this is something, it's interesting. Do you remember back in the day when they had they would have Tupperware parties and sell Tupperware,
Yeah.
you know, group of people get together and have wine and sell Tupperware.
Yeah, my mom used to do that stuff. I remember being a kid, everybody at the house.
So here's what I've realized. The Augusta rule could work in a suburban community.
Mm.
If you have your Tupperware business as an LLC, it's its own business, it can expense the cost of renting out your space. You pay yourself. So it's a business expense. You're making that income. That could pay for your homeowner's insurance for the year. Obviously, it has to be a certain number of days. It doesn't have to be exclusive to somebody who has an $80 million mansion.
Right.
It could be somebody who lives in a $400,000 home. So these little tactics that you have where you think it's just secrets of the rich, it has no income restriction to it. These are just secrets on how you create more tax efficiency to generate more revenue and keep more profit in your pocket. So you, as a business owner, can capitalize on the assets that you have as well.
Amen. Amen. Yeah.
Mhm.
No, you're absolutely right. And what's interesting, just for thought, initially I asked my tax preparer, tax strategist, and he was, you could tell when I asked him about it, he was kind of like, just as he said, yeah, I've heard, but his nonverbals was saying he wasn't super aware of it, didn't really understand the ins and outs how it worked, right?
Right.
And so he actually really started doing some research, and that's why, again, having the right experts around you, yes, it may cost you a little bit more to get a really good, and I'm not talking about just somebody that'll file your taxes for you, or just a CPA. I'm talking about
Mm,
an actual, tax strategist, or seeking
mm,
legal advice. That's always what I encourage people to do. And Jared, we could sit here all night just giving, different example after example, like the Augusta rule, that again, most people, particularly, smaller businesses or just LLCs, or even S corporate, a lot of times those, we just don't know what we don't know. And
exactly.
it costs us a lot of money, unfortunately, that ignorance. So
Yeah. So yeah, the ignorance tax is quite expensive.
yeah.
So you work with individuals, you work with business owners, and you have done so for 20 plus years, and you truly are an expert in your domain. When you have someone come to you and they sit down and they say, I really want to structure something where I'm creating capital efficiency, I make sure I have the right insurance in place, I make sure that my business is running in tip top shape. What are three of the things that the individuals who are sitting in front of you should be looking at that are key to assure that their business will be safe and continue to grow?
Yeah, so I think we could go a lot of directions on that, but one of the biggest things I think is, the we didn't really get into this, but I think having the right type of investment set up, from a tax strategy standpoint, whether that's, depending on the type of business, a 401k or nonprofit, even, a 403b. If there's different products for small business, simple IRAs and stuff like that, without getting too detailed, there's
Mhm.
definitely a lot of tax advantages to explore in that and looking. And that's one of the questions, I would ask is, okay, what are we looking for? Are we looking for, tax efficiency, tax deduction? We look in, even that, if you have employees, could really help with retention and stuff by
Mm,
having a plan set up like that. So you work hard to get good people, you develop them. You don't want to train the competition, right? So by having certain, plans like that in place and offering that to your people, could be of a big benefit. So I definitely look at those type of plans. The next thing, I would look at, do they have a buy sell agreement in place? If so, do they have life insurance that could be the funding of that, right? As,
mhm,
coupled with, do you have any key integral people in your business that if something happened to them, that we need to look at those key man policies? And depending on the business, especially a lot of, mom and pops or solopreneurs, if you will, where it's just them, is, you may have, it could be the wife. Maybe she's, rock and rolling, kicking butt, taking names and making a couple 100,000 a year. The spouse is, making 50,000 a year. So if that family's living off $250,000 a year, but mom's 200,000 of it, God forbid
mm.
something happened tomorrow and mom's gone.
Yep,
Could that
yep,
spouse and those kids maintain that $250,000 a month lifestyle with a $50,000 income? Probably not. Right.
no.
And so that's where having adequate life insurance, which is, typically what you're going to see is recommended is 10 times rule, 10 times your annual income. I've seen different experts say 8 to 12, right? I mean, just chalk it up, say 10 times your average or your annual income, right? Well,
Mhm.
if you do that now in that situation, wife has a $2 million policy, something God forbid happens, dad's a beneficiary, receives that, or the kid, whoever, that $2 million, they could
Mhm.
take and invest the bulk of it. We can't replace mom, obviously, in that situation, but at least we could replace the income because, think about it, Jared. You lost a spouse, you lost a parent. The emotional devastation of that is nearly unbearable. But if that's
Mhm.
compounded with financial devastation and they start losing the
Oh.
house, losing cars, kids having to change school in the mix of all the emotional trauma going on, right? And,
Mhm.
and so I really, really encourage people use life insurance as an income replacement tool to buy yourself time till you create an actual estate. Because if you think about it, Jared, that's really what life insurance is. It's an instant estate
Mhm.
until you've had enough time, enough years to create an actual estate. I tell people now, look,
Yep.
in that situation, if that family had a couple few $1,000,000 invested, the house is paid for free and clear, the kids are grown and gone. Okay, maybe in that situation you don't need life insurance or near as much, but that is
Mhm.
that is something I would definitely talk to them about. On the personal side, just protecting that income to their loved ones.
One of the things that I've seen with life insurance for the breadwinner of the family is that they will get that 10x life insurance policy. And it could be term, it could be whole life, it could be a combination of the two, which we didn't talk about the differentiation between the two. And we can always talk about that on a future segment.
Well,
But if the spouse were to pass away, it goes into a trust. And then the trust has a very specific buy box of how that money could be spent. And I've seen it dictated that that money could only be invested in certain types of vehicles that return a 6, 8, 10% return. So that $200,000 in income that was lost, and you've got a $2 million policy, and that policy is to be invested at 8%, that's $160,000 that's now coming in income. Because one of the challenges is if you're dealing with someone who doesn't have the financial savvy, getting a $2 million check when someone passes away is a very, 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 very bad thing.
hmm.
So sometimes you have to protect people from themselves and you set up a structure to make sure the family is taken care of in perpetuity.
Absolutely. I trust, kitty trust is another
Mhm.
thing, because again, my situation, I have 5 kids. We're repopulating the earth over here. And
Apparently.
yeah, and 4 are still 15 and under. And I say that to say, okay, what I want to leave millions of dollars to children? Absolutely not. Right. Or even when they turn 18, would I want them to inherit or receive millions of dollars? No, that would be disastrous. Right. So you could set it up in I don't know the technical legal name. You hear it called a kitty trust, right? Where you can, while as a parent, you're alive, you could set it up to say, okay, hey, it's going to, give them pay out so much a year for them to be taken care of, when it can, they can use it to help with college or a first vehicle, or they can get a certain percentage when they turn 25. They can take another certain percentage when they're 30. I mean, there's a gazillion ways you could structure it, right? Again, you get with the attorney who obviously a trust is a legal contract, and that you walk through, an attorney could help walk through how to structure that, but where you could spread it out over time too, to where somebody couldn't get it. But the last thing on that is I always tell people that I work with is, hey, you know God forbid, we hope you buy the policy, never need it, but God forbid you do, if you will allow us to, we will be there to guide through making sound long-term financial decisions. That way the money's not spent and blown on silly stuff. And I always encourage people, take the bulk of that life insurance. Cause a lot of people, honestly, Jerry, they think, well, let's pay off the mortgage. Let's pay off this. Well, heck, if you got a mortgage 3-4% and you can invest it doing better, right? You got this goose over here, the investment that's going to continue paying interest and dividends. That's the golden egg that's going to pay down the mortgage and build equity in that property. And so
Yes.
eventually you're going to have a house paid for, and you still have got all your investment assets over here. So definitely, man, having the right financial team around you, people you can trust, that you really feel have your best interest at heart and that know what the heck they're talking about, right? To help you properly set this up. That way the money does what it's intended to do. And, so you're protected if you pass too soon, but you're also
Mm.
investing and building towards financial independence for if you live a long time. That way you're protected at both ends of the spectrum.
What you just said is brilliant. And with the example of paying off the mortgage, you're already getting a deduction for your mortgage when it's your personal property. Even if it's an investment property, you have certain deductions you can take and depreciation that you can take. So the reality is taking the proceeds from that life insurance policy, it's so much better if that gets invested and starts becoming an income producing asset for you if it's set up in some type of a vehicle like a trust. So there is something that's incredibly important for business owners. You do not have a choice. You must have a financial and planning services team around you that is setting you up to make sure that you have success in your financial management from a tax standpoint, from an estate planning standpoint, and from an insurance standpoint. That is going to make sure that everything you are working your butt off for is worth it at the end of the day, and you can leave some type of legacy for your family.
Yeah.
So, Jason, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a rapid fire round. You don't know these questions, but you got to answer them quickly.
Okay.
And we'll wrap up the segment. So,
No.
pH balanced water or Diet Coke?
Water, Diet Coke?
Water or Diet Coke?
Water.
Good man. Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Favorite cuddly teddy bear, Care Bears or Cabbage Patch Kids?
Oh man, my wife.
Ah, she is cuddly. I love her.
Yeah.
Jason's amazing.
Yeah.
All right. So it's a zombie apocalypse.
Okay.
You've got your wife and you got your 5 kids and you got to protect them. What is the one weapon of choice that you're taking out into the battlefield?
Oh man, pump shotgun probably.
So tell me, what is one of your favorite quotes?
Is one of my favorite quotes is, be the thermostat, not the thermometer, right? And meaning that when you walk into a room, you set the temperature, right? And we teach this to our kids, right? When you walk in the room, the atmosphere just got elevated. Does that make sense? The energy just got elevated. The excellence just got elevated. We are not going to adjust who we are by outside circumstances and respond to that, right? We're going to set the tone. We're going to set the temperature and the environment, and we're going to make sure it's always better because we were there.
I love it. That's awesome. So if you had the choice of anyone who is dead or alive tonight at 8:30 your time, which I think is Mountain Time, Central Time. If you had the choice of anyone to have dinner with, who would it be?
I would say I would really like to invite 3 people to this dinner if that's okay. Okay.
All right. I will give you grace because you gave so many good answers today.
Okay. And man, I would say Jesus Christ, right? I got a lot of questions I would love to ask him. I would say a homeless person, honestly, and Michael Jordan.
I love it. That'll make for a very dynamic dinner. So 2 more questions to go. You are a business owner. You have $10 million in revenue. And I show up with a $300,000 check and say, Mr. or Mrs. Business Owner, here is $300,000. How would you advise that they invest that so they can grow their business and their revenue?
Okay. Um, man, I would say, you know, one of the things, it would depend on their business. Obviously, I would have to ask a few questions there. Probably one of the first things is I would find out some personal development, some knowledge gaps, some skill set gaps that could be filled, and invest in themselves. Right. I think that's the best investment we can make is in ourselves. Part next behind that would be investing in the having maybe the right person around you to help shore up some shortfalls. If you need to hire some people that especially if you're doing things. The concept, Jared, is we should be operating in our best and highest use.
Yes.
Okay. So if I'm doing a lot of tasks that is not in my best and highest use, that's not the 20% of the things that add 80% of the value to my business, then I've got to find a way to get some of that off my plate. Right. And a lot of times, particularly small business owners, we want to hold on with, clenched fists to every little dollar. But a lot of times it's opening that up in spending a little bit to hire a personal assistant, to hire somebody to help do this, that, or the other, whatever it is. When we open our hands up, actually a lot more money can start flowing into our hands. Okay.
Mm.
And, it may be a systems thing. It could be some technology they could buy, depending on the type of their business. Some of it could be more. I know you said three things, but again, it's kind of a loaded question, and it would be very contingent upon what their business is, where they're at, what are strengths, what are some deficiencies. Maybe a little bit of a SWOT analysis or something there, but hopefully a couple of those ideas made sense.
The personal development and hiring the people who you can delegate those menial tasks to, very important. So, last and most important question: what is the biggest obstacle you have had to overcome in your personal business that has helped you grow as a father and a businessman and a husband?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say mistake in the beginning for the end, right?
Phew, mic drop. Yeah. Okay.
You mistake
And talk me through that process for you. That was I had to sit back on that one.
yeah.
Yeah, keep going.
All right. And I've learned this a couple times the hard ways, right? Mistake the beginning for the end, meaning, man, you get some momentum, you get some things going, and imagine you're going up a hill. Well, you may be flying up that hill really fast and seeing a peak. And the problem is we let off. So consequently, what happens? Boom, we fall back to the hill. I've seen that happen time and time again. You get some momentum. You bring on some champions into your organization that they're crushing. They're showing a lot of good signs. And so what happens? We think like, man, whew, finally, I can take a break. Right? We got some dogs in here. They're gonna go do their thing, and I can finally what do they say? Work on the business, not in the business, right? And so we get out of the business too fast, Jared, and turn it over to people who they don't love it like you. They don't care about it like you. So there's a lot of ways you can mistake the beginning for the end. One more key critical example of that is I've seen there's times, man, where you're gonna have harvest season in your business, man. You're freaking making it rain, the money's flowing. And sometimes as business owners, we get delusional to think, man, it's just going to go up and up from here. Man, we got to stay positive, right? We got to be optimistic, man. We're believing, we're affirming, we got the faith. This thing's just going to keep rocking and rolling, compounding. Well, sometimes that's the case. Often it's not, right? So we spend that money, we adjust our lifestyle, right? We think we've arrived and made it, was really over that hump, but we weren't. So now, God forbid, something happens. There's for whatever reason, reduction in income and stuff like that. Now you're in a panic mode. You've altered your lifestyle. You've overspent, undersaved, and invested, and now you're in a stressful hardship. So, man, live have a lifestyle that's half. If your income got cut in half, you could easily maintain your lifestyle, even keep investing, keep giving, doing all that. When you got momentum and you think you're there, man, keep going harder, keep running while you got that wind at your back, right? And make sure you're absolutely over the hill before you even think about taking your foot off the gas. Again, don't mistake the beginning for the end. Stay focused till you're done. Till like, absolutely, man, we're financially independent. We're bulletproof. Don't even think about letting up or retracting until then.
Jason Gills, on that note, where can the audience reach you if they want to have a great conversation like what we're having?
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. I'd be more than happy. Obviously today was very informative, educational, and I enjoyed this. But if people want, to have more specific questions, want to dial into their specific situation, honestly, man, they can reach out to me directly on my cell phone, to be honest, or email. My email is J is in Jason, K is in Kite, Gills, Gills at gmail.com. That's a great way to get a hold of me. Okay. My Instagram is Jason Gills. You can find me on there. I believe it's Jason __ Gills. But you can find me on there, and I would love to connect with your audience, sir, and add any value I can, answer any questions, and hopefully be a value added resource that, if I don't have the answers, worst case, we can find them, point them in the right directions.
Awesome. Jason, thank you for joining us on 0 to 100. Incredibly informative. I know the audience has a lot to take away from here.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure and an honor.
Awesome.